Southport child killer charged with terror offense. Al-Qaeda manual found. A disturbing development has emerged in the Southport child murder case as 18-year-old Axel Ruda Cubana faces additional terror related charges alongside his existing murder counts for the tragic Taylor Swift themed holiday club stabbings last July. The attack, which claimed the lives of three young children and sparked nationwide unrest, has an even darker turn as authorities have discovered the biotoxin ricin and an Al Qaeda training manual in Rudakabana's residence. As independent reviewer Jonathan Hall KC noted, quote, the government has to be aware and will be aware that if there is an information gap, particularly in the mainstream media, then there are other voices, particularly in social media, who will try to fill it. A prescient observation given the riots that erupted across the UK following the incident, leading to over 1,000 arrests. While Rudakbana now faces charges under the Biological Weapons Act and Terrorism Act, police maintain that no terrorist motive has been established for the original attack, which claimed the lives of BB King, who was 6, Elsie Dot Stancombe, who was 7, and Alice da Silva Aguilar, who was 9. So this is one of those instances where I saw a news story and then my brain melted for a while. And then I read more into the news and I was like, okay, maybe it's not what I think it is. So that's part of the reason why I wanted to cover this story because Donkey Kong, for example, is saying, oh, the far right was correct about the stabbings, Islam was involved, blah, blah, blah. We actually have not established that to be true right now. I know that this is maybe not what like a lot of people want to hear, but this has not been established to be true thus far. And basically, this is very concerning. And it does point to the possibility that there was an Islamic terroristic motive. That has not been established yet. And people are saying all sorts of conspiracies about this because when he went into court to get arraigned or whatever, like he was covering his face the whole time. They're like, "Oh, he's covering that he has an Islamic beard, blah 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 blah." There's no there's no evidence of that. Like there are very serious things about this case that need to be investigated and studied both from independent reviewers and within the government. One of the main things that needs to be studied is this information gap that happened because when Rudakabana committed this attack, he was 17 and he has since turned 18. And this is really problematic because if he is a minor, then his identity is supposed to be protected, right? Because that's the law. And eventually, after the riots were already underway, that's when the government finally started to release more information about who the suspect was, who was, found at the event. They're like, "Oh, he was a guy from Cardiff, a guy from Wales. Oh, he is the child of Rwandan immigrants. Oh, they grew up very active in the church, blah 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 blah." But by the time they started releasing this information, things were already out of control. And then I feel like it became kind of gaslighty towards the British public, being like, well, why would you ever assume that this had an Islamic motive? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe because now on the bridges in London, they have to have giant concrete barriers so people can't commit vehicular jihad on the bridges. Um, like that was a major thing that happened. Like, do you guys not remember that was like explicitly an Islamic terrorist attack? Do you not remember what happened at the Ariana Grande concert? That was an Islamic terrorist attack. Like, do you not remember the guy? We covered this story in detail. It happened in the last year. The guy that was the asylum seeker from Gaza that went and attacked his Iranian ex-Muslim Christian convert asylum seeker roommates with a knife, almost killed them, then went out on the street and stabbed a pensioner to death, all for the sake of Gaza. Like, I remember all of these things. So I feel like the balance of probabilities is when this kind of event happens. If we're being honest, the balance of probabilities is that it probably does have an Islamic terrorist motive. So just basically saying that, oh, everyone's like a bigot and racist for like making that assumption, I don't think is completely honest. That doesn't mean that it's okay to jump to an assumption, but pretending like people have no basis for the balance, like identifying the balance of probabilities, I think is incredibly dishonest. And that doesn't mean that we blanket make bigoted generalizations towards all Muslims. That's different, right? Saying like all Muslims are terrorists is a
Yeah.
bigoted blanket statement. Saying, oh, a mass casualty event involving like stabbings and little girls has a higher probability of having Islamic motivation than not is not a bigoted statement. Do people see the
Yeah.
difference? Um,
Yes, yes. Exactly. Perfectly said. Perfectly said. Yes.
and to,
Not all Muslims, but more likely a Muslim.
yeah,
Summarize.
that's not crazy because
Mm.
globally that is the case. This isn't just a UK thing or a Western thing. Globally, that is the case. And it like the United Nations has recognized this. If you go look at the like attacks that the United Nations has condemned, like a over 90% of them were like Islamic terrorist related. Like this is not, I don't know. So that's one thing. But now there's this new information that came out where basically at some point the authorities went to this kid's house and found that he was making biotoxins, probably to be used in some sort of bioterrorism, and then also found Al Qaeda training manuals or like a PDF or something in his possession. And so those are specific criminal charges. And that being said, I know this is a very difficult thread or the needle to thread, whatever. And it's a little bit mentally like difficult for me to separate these two. That doesn't necessarily mean that there is an Islamic motive. That is a very specific thing to be established. And believe it or not, people can have training materials for any given group of terrorists or whatever and not be motivated by that ideology. For example, they might be studying their materials to figure out their operations, not because of their
But it
ideology.
makes it a lot more likely, though. Like it's not a
It does.
definite
Okay,
proof.
yeah, let me not be dishonest. It does make it a lot more likely, but that is not what the
A
authorities have
lot more
concluded
likely.
at this point. But what should
Yeah, yeah.
be questioned is, and this is something that does deserve questioning, is how long did the authorities know this without saying it? How long did the authorities know this without saying it? Because it's gone months before they brought forward these charges. That does
I would
deserve to
say
be.
if a young boy has material like that, I would consider it above 90% that had an influence. Not 100%, but above 90%. Maybe I'm wrong.
I personally don't have any sort of like
I mean,
foundation for
if I
establishing.
had that material, you would
Yeah.
be like, well, Armin, like he's doing research. That's what he does, right? But if a young boy like him had that and he went stabby on people, if somebody had said like, okay, it's not 100%, but there seems to be not just a correlation here, but a causation. I would not say 100%, but maybe at least
Okay, you know
80%
what?
chance
Yeah, I
here.
agree. Like, if he
I
had
mean,
this
nothing
training
is worse.
material and then it came out that he was, like, actually motivated by, like, the IRI excuse me, the
Yeah,
IRA, I'd be like, "Okay,
yeah.
well, that's a plot twist."
That's weird. Yeah, that's weird. Like I would have guessed if I had to guess, I would be like, yeah, that the ISIS material seemed to have been more related. So if I
Yeah,
had to guess, I would like. So yeah, we're not 100% certain, but it's a justified. So here's the thing: we don't need
yeah.
certainty for us to have justified belief. I think it's a justified belief as of right now to think like, yeah, this guy was motivated by ISIS. Right.
I mean, to be extra careful, I would say that it's probable.
Yeah. Well,
You
that's
know,
what you
that's
need for
that's not
justified belief.
actually.
For that's justified belief doesn't mean certainty. Justified belief means something is probable enough for me to hold that as a belief right now and be willing to let it go unless if there's evidence comes to the contrary. A lot of people think justified beliefs means that I am certain of something. No, justified belief means like given what I have right now, I am going to hold on to this belief, but I'm not married to it. I could let it go if I have to.
Yeah. And one thing that I find very interesting and is I was reading a lot of reporting on this from the different UK newspapers, and there are people who work within the government or have experience saying like the authorities would have found this and been aware of this material like very shortly after the event. Very shortly after the event. Like, so why is this only coming out like months later? Like what is
Mm,
going on here? And I think that
that's-
actually does deserve. Yeah. Yeah, DSA,
yeah.
most of the comments online were about withholding information. People are pissed. That does deserve some looking into and people being held accountable for. That certainly does. I don't want to undermine the authority of the British police. I think that that's not a helpful thing to do.
Sometimes
Um,
it is actually.
well,
Not undermine the undermine the authority. No, you're right. But questioning their methods and
certainly,
calling them out. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
yeah, because I
Yeah.
actually think that people that push narratives that our institutions cannot be saved, um, are playing into the hands of our adversaries, and I don't like to do that. Um, but this is something that does need to be very looked into, and this when things are handled this way, it can lead to a situation where people completely lose trust in um the authorities, and that's a very dangerous road to go down. Um and yeah, I don't know. It's tough. It's going to be very very interesting to see how this case evolves, and we're obviously going to be following it very closely.
Yeah. Oh wait, I need to so address some comments here. So Amir is saying, are there more detail on how they found the manual? I think I answered that.
I believe that it was a PDF that was found on his laptop.
Hmm. Weird. Okay. Okay. So we already addressed that. Oh yeah,
Oh,
you
this is
already
very
read this
interesting.
thing from Dr.
Sorry, this is an
Yeah. Go ahead.
important
You're.
comment. Vic the
Yeah.
Brave is saying, "You do have to remember that trial by jury in the UK is very fragile if details are exposed to the public before the trial. It has to be viewed differently to the US criminal procedure." That's very helpful context. Thank you.
Mm. By the way, this was a very important comment. I don't know if you understand what this person is referring to. Oh, this is the
Are we going to address
metaphysical
the
loss.
elephant in Armin's room?
I think
I
he
mean,
or
there's
she is
literally a.
this.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. That was funny. I just wanted to highlight
I thought he was talking about you.
that. Yeah. And also, guys, remember how I told like we have somebody in the chat called Han that I like when he's that we keep around to
Mm,
make fun of. So he's saying, see how they apologize for Muslims? This channel is Muslim apologists because they are liberals. So guys, because we're saying not all Muslims are terrorists, even though we're saying if there's a terrorist activity, think about this guy. Even though me and Susanna both agree that if there's a terrorist activity in the world, it's more likely that it's been done by Muslims and it has an Islamic motivation. Because we're acknowledging that not all Muslims are terrorists, he's calling us Muslim apologists, even while we have the view that most terrorist activities in the world right now are done by Muslims with Islamic motivations.
and people that
This is
don't admit
this guy is
that are
insane.
disingenuous, fighting liars.
Oh my
Ay,
god,
ay,
this guy is
ay.
absolutely insane. Yeah. Oh, by the way, we should read the does D have anything for us? Do you want to highlight some of the comments in the
Yeah, so a lot of people, like Dee was saying, are reacting to this, the fact that this information came out so much later. So one person on Twitter is saying, "Stop saying they withheld information, they lied." Because again, people are jumping to, okay, this means that it is proof positive that it was Islamic terrorism. I don't know if we can establish that set of facts yet. I know that I don't know.
Hmm.
I just really have to hold
What about
out.
this
You know?
one?
Yeah, and this person is, I don't even like just saying, "Oh, little girls dancing is a motivation in the Quran, you idiot," because they're saying, "Oh, they haven't established a terrorist motive yet." And I'm like, "What are you on about?"
Okay, guys, sometimes it's justified when to say like we know the motivation, why are they not announcing the motivations? But sometimes the police is actually right. Just because it's apparent, they have a higher standard than me and you. So sometimes it's obvious to me, to us, that the motivation is most likely Islam, and we will come and say it here. But the police, I mean, maybe if there's a double standard, okay, I would accept that, right? So if the police said that, we need more investigation to be able to see what the motivation was, and I'm like, okay, fine. Police has a higher standard than us here, so if they don't want to announce the motivation, let them do more investigations. But this is maybe actually these people are justified to be angry, because if this guy was a white supremacist, if the police was all of a sudden, okay, here's the motivation, and they waited around so much for a Muslim person or an Islamic motivation, like, oh, we need to do more research. But if a white supremacist did that, all of a sudden within minutes they would announce the motivation. That double standard would justify the anger. But if they were consistent with both of them, I wouldn't mind if they were taking their time. I wouldn't mind if they were like, we need to make
You
sure
know what,
before we
Armin? That's a
announce
very
something.
good point. Let me not be disingenuous. I think two-tier policing is 100% a real thing in the UK.
Right.
So if people
Right.
are completely distrustful, I mean, if frankly, if I was living in the UK, like, I'd be setting my hair on fire with the stuff that I see going on there, especially with the restrictions on free expression. I'd straight up be
Right.
losing my mind. Like, I'd be one of those people where they're like, "That girl's a real nut job," like, because she's so out there.
Okay.
Maybe
So
it's
yeah,
just the
let's.
American in me. I go a little too gung ho, okay? But
Yes. Agree.
yeah,
Okay.
I've seen
By the way, I
I've
got
seen
distracted
too
by
much
people in the
bullshit from
live
the
chat. People.
police to not believe that two-tier policing is a real thing.
Yeah.
Ay,
By the
ay,
way,
ay.
so yeah, I think maybe the UK people, like, they're correct to be angered. Like, we're like, oh guys, this is not how the police operates. I mean, the people in the UK notice, like, fuck you, the police operates in a different way when it comes to these other people. So don't tell me that the police has to get all the evidence. It when they act a different way when it comes to other people. So I mean, maybe the anger is justified. But also, a lot of people in the chat are saying Tommy's in prison right now. I think the
Oh, you didn't know
Israeli is
that?
that. No, because I've been so focused on Israel and Iran. Tommy's in prison right now. Maybe
Oh,
I should
yeah,
go
he's
see him
in
one day.
jail. He's behind bars, buddy.
What the fuck? Okay, so maybe
Yeah.
I need to Okay, I need to cover that. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
I have so many things to do. I don't know if I could, like. Okay. Um. Well, all right. So what is this one?
So
Where
this
is the
person is kind of talking about this, reaction that everyone's having, saying none of this information would have been available to be released because counterterror would have been checking every lead and every contact before any information could have been made to the public. They have obviously concluded that to be at the point of bringing charges. So this is just speaking
guys?
to, like, sorry.
People in the live chat are saying, Armin, how did you miss that? How did you miss this, Armin? Guys, because I've been obsessively following Iran and Israel. That's why I missed this. I'm sorry. I will try to, like, again, I have been complete. My attention has gone so much in the other direction. Okay. So that's why I haven't noticed. You guys should have told me this. Like, you should reach out to me sometimes. Yeah, but
Oh,
sorry.
excuse me.
I
Okay,
will.
I can give you updates,
No,
man.
I'm telling you, I will try to I will try to come back to the UK and focus more on Europe a little bit more, okay?
Mhm.
Because so yeah, I will do that. Sorry,
Um,
there's a fucking war happening. I don't know what. That's why I've been distracted. I'm sorry. I apologize.
but
Apologize.
there's been a war happening. Um,
Yes, there's an
so
actual war.
we got a super chat from the seal of the prophet. And is there a logo, a little seal, or is it a dog? Oh my god, it's a seal with a Hamas headband on.
What?
Okay, seals are one of my favorite animals, and now you're making them jihadis, and I don't appreciate this. 'Cause they're my favorite. They're the dogs of the
Oh,
sea. Um,
oh.
um, so anyways, thank you for the 15 shekels. Saying, I'm sure you are absolutely shocked just as much as I was that the Southport attack had something to do with Islam. Who could have foreseen this? Well, some facts remain to be seen, but yeah, it's not looking good,
It's
kid.
not a
It's
it's not a
not looking good.
surprise. It's not. If so, if it's not Islamic, it might not be Islamic, but I would be shocked if it's not Islamic, and if it is Islamic, I would not be shocked. This is how I would
Yeah,
say.
yeah.
By the way, so people are saying like Armin is blame. Vic is saying, "Go on, Armin, blame us, the Jews."
Wait, what?
For not,
Oh, for you not
because
being
I wasn't blaming you guys. I was requesting. I was requesting that if I'm not talking about something, maybe like mention. I go live often. You could mention it in the live chat. So like, yeah. So I'm
Ah,
like blaming
Vic,
Armin
that's
is
too
blaming the Jews
funny.
for his own. Armin's blaming the Jews for his own
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
shortcomings,
Your ignorance,
as the
of
rest
course.
as the rest of the world does the same. There's a little bit of anti. Maybe the Hindus who were coming after me were right. Like once a Muslim, always a Muslim. Maybe the Muslim in me has the habit of blaming you guys. The remaining Muslim in me just can't help but blame you guys. It's
Oh my
always
god,
helpful to have some Jews around to blame things
that's so funny. It
on.
reminds me of, friend of the show, our friend Rivka. Um, she has a joke, because sometimes you need some humor to get through the BS in life. Where when she faces any slight inconvenience, she goes, "Is this anti-Semitism?"
Do you know who makes the most amazing, gorgeous, and other adjectives that I can't use here on YouTube, blasphemous art ever? We do! And for some reason, we are giving it away for free. Download them now using the link in the description before we change our mind.